Well, welcome everybody. It's Bronte Price here from the Equality Network, and today I'm thrilled to be able to have a chat with a psychologist, Ryan. As you know, it's the 10th of October 2022. Today is World Mental Health Day, and I thought, what better person to have a chat with on this particular day than a psychologist who works right across the general population, but also is very comfortable in working with the LGBTIQ plus community. So welcome, Ryan, and thanks.
Thank you, Bronte. And I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it very much.
So let's start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and the kind of work you do, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm actually a forensic psychologist, sort of by trade, so to speak. And spent the first sort of 10 years of my career working in the criminal justice system, sort of at the hard end of mental health. And obviously within that system, in the men's and women's prison, met a number of men and women in the queer community, of course, but also working across the general population, learning a lot about diverse ranges of extreme presentations of mental health, which was a really good background for them working in schools, working in disability sector, working in the deaf and deaf-blind area as well. And the last sort of 13 years now, been mainly focusing on two areas of work, one around the queer community in my practice in Preston, the other one would be around the autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and sort of general mental health and forensic at the clinic in Ringwood. So it's quite a broad range. This is my 22nd year, which shudder to think how many people I've worked with, but 22nd years and only a few greys, which is great. So it's working well. And thoroughly enjoy what I do. And I always say to people that the process of therapy is a really gentle, beautiful process that is only difficult and hard at the beginning, but with a hope-based positive approach, people generally always do quite well, which is fantastic. So it's quite rewarding for me and for them.
Thank you. So as I said earlier, today is World Mental Health Day. Have you got some thoughts about why it's so important to celebrate a day like today? Why do we have World Mental Health Day?
Look, for me, I think it is an important day. I guess it's more than awareness raising. It's probably, for me, a lot about everyone just recognising the contributions of all the different types of professionals in the area, not just psychologists, social workers. A lot of teachers do mental health work, a lot of friends, neighbours, family members. Every single person will be impacted directly or indirectly within their family or outside their family. So it really is an every person's issue, cross-culturally, cross ages, cross generations, cross wealth stratas, you name it. It doesn't discriminate at all. And everyone has a story. Everyone's life literally could be a bestseller novel. And often it will involve some challenge in the mental health area.
So I want to turn to the workplace if we can, and I want you to talk to us about what you think are the major mental health issues for LGBTIQ plus people in the workplace.
The biggest issue I would say would be a sense of isolation or alienation, where often there's only one or two people who identify, who are out that identify as in the queer community, and often a lack of queer representation in management, and also the typecasting that some people in the queer community get from others outside the queer community in terms of how they think certain people would act within the community when it's extremely diverse and they have no understanding of the range of uniqueness and presentation within it. So alienation and I guess isolation and lack of numbers in a workplace. When you find a workplace that is very queer focused and queer heavy, it doesn't mean those organisations don't have issues as well, because they do find that groups of different individuals can group together, people can still feel alienated and isolated, and it can still have an impact. So all queer is not the answer as well. There needs to be a lot of balance.
Okay. And do you find that some of those issues that you talked about around alienation and identity and so on are based on old stereotypes and stigma associated with being queer?
Yeah, they would have to, without a doubt, be old stereotypes and stigma. And I guess the belief systems of others outside the queer community, which can be informed by their own trauma, their own lack of information, their own misinformation, maybe their own political or religious beliefs as well, cultural beliefs as well. You know, Melbourne is such a cultural, diverse place. I guess most of Australia is, particularly Melbourne as well. And so you've got lots of different people all trying to fit in their own way, bringing their own backpack of information, which is, for or against inclusivity, depending on how they interpret what is inclusivity for them.
Yeah. And do you find that there are some, and I guess here we go to stereotyping in a way, that some industry sectors, some business sectors are more problematic, less inclusive in terms of mental health of LGBTIQ plus people than others?
Look, it's hard to make big generalisations like that. I mean, I found organisations like Victorian Police, Department of Justice, the prison network, incredibly inclusive, contrary to what most people would think. But then I found some areas like construction and engineering and accounting and tax, really suffering in those areas of inclusivity. And not just for the queer community, but just for lots of other groups as well, cultural or religious or even gender. So yes, some sectors are better or worse than others. It really depends on the way they're led and ongoing awareness of what are up-to-date knowledge, understanding and terminology of all the progress that goes on within the queer community, because it's forever changing over, my lifetime and your lifetime.
Yeah. I want to go there for a second and just ask about, do you find that if a workplace or part of an industry sector is not necessarily as inclusive as it might be, is that in a general, more broad way as well? So not just around sexuality and gender, but race and age and ability and so on? Yeah,
race, culture, age, ability, and also disability, a lack of inclusiveness with disability. A lot of people have a whole range of health complications, hidden, non-visible mental health issues within and outside the queer community. So there's lots of issues around inclusivity. Yeah, broader. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very, very broad, and that's just, I guess, LGBTIQ plus issues are one aspect of the overall issues around inclusivity.
So talk to us a little bit about the impact on the individual if their workplace is not inclusive.
Look, there's a lot of impacts. One would essentially be a lack of sense of belonging in the organisation, and a lack of belonging in your workplace, which would be, up to 20 to 30 to 40 hours a week, leaves the person feeling quite disconnected and alienated. So that can replicate what they may have experienced in their teenage years in high school and primary school. So it carries on that trauma that I am different, no one understands me, I'm unlovable, and that can be replicated within their family as well. So it's pretty big. It's a huge impact, really. Other people outside the community might think, oh, what's the big deal? We don't bring our sexuality to work. Why is it such an issue for the queer community? Well, that's because alienation, isolation goes back to primary years and formation of early childhood senses of belonging and connection, and that worthiness of feeling loved and included. And if that pattern repeats in primary years, secondary years, tertiary years, workplace environments, the person can never really feel a sense of, well, where do I fit in? Which is why, there are big issues around suicide and self-harm, and the way mental health is managed and not managed within the queer community. So it does need its own special attention.
So that's the impact on the individual. What's the impact on the business or the workplace itself if that workplace just isn't inclusive?
Look, I mean, from a horrendous capitalist perspective, they're losing great talent. They're losing people who are, typically highly creative, very dynamic, extremely hardworking, wanting to prove themselves, very focused, not distracted by other things in their life, and really want to work hard and fit in. They will lose talent. They will lose diversity of thought. They will lose a lot of compassion. And so the lack of diversity of their workplace won't encourage others from all diverse backgrounds to feel included and connected. And so it means the organisation won't grow, it'll stay stagnant, and the world will just continue on around them. So it creates a stagnation in the organisation and a loss of really valuable employees that could be around for long term, that could make their connection to their workplace part of their life story.
And presumably that word spreads. So if they're in non-inclusive workplace, then the tom-tom drums will just sound very quickly across community and have an impact as well, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, reputation, I guess, is everything these days. Yeah.
I think it's true also that there's this other impact around lack of productivity. So if a person is fearful of being able to be their authentic selves at work, then they may throw themselves into their work to avoid contact and engagement with other co-workers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're productive in a way. They're just self-absorbed rather than doing the work that perhaps they should be.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that need to fit in can drive excessive amounts of hard working, working huge amount of hours to prove themselves to others and prove themselves to themselves that they're worthy of being included, or that they're worthy of being considered for full-time work or for promotions, or just to feel safe and connected and part of the team and the broader network of the organisation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And just being able to be part of that fabric, and to have that idle chit chat, that banter, the coffee pub, perhaps they're excluded from that, I think.
Yeah. And just being able to feel relaxed enough to be in a staff room or outside, at a tea break or in a meeting, and feel that there's not an anxiety where they've just got to get up and go, their job's done, they can move on, they're actually part of the fabric of the place.
Thank you.
And we all want to fit in, we all want to be part of the fabric of something.
Yeah.
And it's critical for our well-being, particularly when work takes up such a large part of our life. And also, a lack of inclusivity will no doubt increase people taking time for sick days or days off, or wanting to work more from home because they feel safer than feeling isolated at work, no one saying hello, people not connecting. And I guess the impact of COVID and work from home really tested the inclusivity of workplaces, where people either felt really connected or very disconnected.
Yeah.
And the amount of job change in the last 12 months has been extraordinary.
Okay.
Extraordinary amount of movement.
Yeah, thank you. Is there do you find a general eagerness or a general reticence amongst the LGBTIQ plus community to seek help from a professional like you? Do they kind of gird the loins and go for that, or do they try and work it out themselves? Is there a reticence or an eagerness, have you found?
I guess my view is kind of biased, because I have a lot of experience of a lot of people really wanting to connect and really wanting to explore. And I think the idea of taking responsibility for our own journey with our own mental health is quite a very broad, well-recognised premise across the queer community. So I think there's a lot of dialogue within the community to seek out and look for help and connect. So I don't think there's an issue with people wanting to do it. It's just getting access to one, having the right fit, getting it in a timely manner, and it being affordable, and it being consistent enough to create change and connection. So I think, generally people in the queer community are quite open to it. They've got to find the right GP to get the referral path, and then they've got to find the right therapist. And usually that's through word of mouth. It's still that old-fashioned word of mouth way, because people want to trust someone with some of the most private parts of their life.
Yep. So that's the step, that's the series. They've got to go to their GP to get a referral to you as a therapist or a psychologist.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
See your GP, chat to your GP. And look, fortunately, Melbourne is blessed with a number of fantastic queer-friendly clinics. And, fortunately, there are so many queer-friendly doctors out there that we have an abundance of choice, which is wonderful. And that's across, most of Melbourne. Obviously, regional areas, it's a lot harder. However, with telehealth, we now have more options for that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's much more, makes it even more accessible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah.
What are some of the steps, the easy steps that workplaces can take to be more inclusive and therefore have a positive impact on queer people's mental health, do you think?
In terms of workplaces, I guess, really making sure that there is the right imagery around the workplace, as simple as a rainbow sticker might be, or flag, the different flags within the community. Little steps like that are small indicators on the front of a shop door, on the front of a hairdresser, on the front of a restaurant, on the front of a doctor's clinic. That gives an immediate indicator that this place you're entering is a safe place and there's a sense of awareness. But it doesn't just start there at the actual, at the logo. It's really about the way managers have open dialogue and discussion about diversity and inclusiveness, and they're using those words and understanding the terminology that create workplace safety for all people. And talk about inclusiveness, not just in terms of gender and sexuality and identity, but in terms of disability, culture, and religion, and all areas of interest in someone's identity. And that level of involvement really is the responsibility of management to ensure that they are not just talking the talk, but walking the talk, and really practicing what they preach. Because when conflict erupts in an organisation and biases take over in terms of employment and progress, you see the cracks in the veneers of the talk, and you see that the walk is not being done. And that's when people lose hope and lose faith in their safety in their employer.
It really is about doing rather than just saying that you're show that you're inclusive by things that you actually do in the workplace. You talked earlier about some of the resources that are out there, and we're particularly blessed in Melbourne in terms of now just such a range, but also a number of queer-friendly resources. Are there some particular ones that you think queer people might access if they were encountering some issues at work that are impacting their mental health?
Absolutely. The most outstanding one I would recommend would be that everyone, whether they're a manager or quite a junior staff member, recommends that the organisation themselves look at Rainbow Health Australia and get your organisation or workplace a Rainbow Health tick. And the training that's provided to the organisation, the follow-up, the messaging, the information, I mean, it's outstanding, it's exceptional, and we really do lead, in the Rainbow Health Australia really do lead worldwide with that sort of information. So we have it literally Melbourne born and bred for Australia to make their workplaces far more healthy.
Yeah.
So rainbowhealthaustralia.org.au, strongly recommend everyone looks at it, passes on to their manager if you're a manager. I feel like it's your responsibility to really inquire and embrace.
Yeah. What message would you give to someone who's watching this chat and thinking, I need to contact someone? Who would you suggest they look? contact, or what steps do you think they should take? Is it to the GP firstly?
Initially would be to the GP, so looking for a GP in their local area that they can trust, usually through word of mouth. And there's a whole range of GPs out there. And then obviously talking to the GP about a queer-friendly psychologist or therapist or social worker, depending on their needs. Some may have specific needs that other therapists can't attend to, that need to be done through specific types of therapists. There's also the option for them to look at the Find a Psychology service from the Australian Psychological Society. So if they put into their search engine, find a psychologist, .org.au from the Australian Psychological Society, they can put in their presenting issues, they can put in their location, they can put in what they want for the psychologist to have in terms of queer friendly. It could be around depression, personality disorders, workplace issues, and they will get a selection of registered, qualified practitioners in their area and contact details to start inquiring.
Wow, thank you. So finally, Ryan, how do people get in contact with you if they want to?
Yeah, look, I'm traditionally pretty hard to find, but the best way would be email. So ryan.teuma@vitalogy.consulting.com, ryan@vitalogyconsulting.com. It's a bit long. I should have made it shorter 13 years ago, but it's too late now. I've just got to run with it. And send me an email, and we can work out if I'm the most appropriate therapist for yourself. Otherwise, I can look for someone or help you find someone. And yeah, you can start, I guess, your journey or where you want to go with your space. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time
My pleasure.
today, Ryan. It's just been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.